The Lexus NX450h plug-in hybrid. Now, we've already done a video on this generation of NX, so we're going to be focusing on whether or not the electrification strategy of this product, most notably the plug-in hybrid portion of this drivetrain, is worth the extra money. This product or vehicle costs nearly $60,000, which puts it up with some very impressive, albeit expensive competition. So let's talk about the interior space first. As a brief overview, this is largely carryover from the regular NX, which means it is on the RAV4 architecture, which we're going to talk about more in the shop, and it's done a good job distinguishing itself from its lesser cousin, the RAV4 Prime. I will say, when it comes to utility though, this is a fairly large step backwards. Due to the Lexus premium styling, the cabin space is less usable. It has a smaller trunk area with the rear seat up. It's similar, but with the rear seat down, it is much smaller. You have less, let's call it, legroom and headroom for the rear passengers. And due to the higher belt line of this vehicle, it's rather claustrophobic, if I'm going to be entirely honest. The materials of this vehicle are fairly premium. While I won't say it is as nice as, say, a X3 or Mercedes GLC or even an Acura RDX, it does do a good job looking far more upscale than something like a RAV4 or Venza. It has the latest version of Toyota connected software, which is quite good. It is Lexus's most recent all-new infotainment. We've done a long video on it. I actually like it quite a bit. The screen is a little bit of an eyesore. It's very, very big, but it is high resolution and tilted towards you. It does dominate the entire dash. You do have physical HVAC, however, and the drive modes, which specifically in this vehicle focus around the electric drivetrain and the ability to go pure EV, are fairly intuitive. They're on these switches by the Digi shifter, and you get a nice readout of what is happening to your battery and the state of charge, both in the gauge cluster and in your infotainment screen. Past that though, this is basically the standard NX cabin, which we've already talked about, complete with all of the Digi switches to get in and out of the vehicle, which are still a pain in the ass. Past that though, let's head into the shop and put this thing up on the lift. Mark, we're underneath the NX450h hybrid plug-in. Now, we've already done a video on this car, and I wanted to say this right off the bat. It's Toyota's global platform, and it's shared with their lesser products. It's not an exclusive platform to Lexus. And that is a harder pill to swallow when you're paying nearly $60,000. The advantage of basically most of its competitors, Genesis included, is all of their higher-end cars are on an exclusive luxury platform. BMW has CLAR, Audi has MLB, Mercedes has Mercedes platform, and even Acura, the RDX, is not on a CRV platform. While it is still strut, it has a more exclusive underpinning, which means a lot of the engineering, a lot of the materials are far more expensive. And I think it shows with this generation NX more than it has in the past. In prior generation Lexus products, because many of its competition wasn't that great, to be all that honest, you didn't really care that it wasn't on an extremely premium platform because the car was reliable, it was quiet enough, it was all these things. But now the competition's so stiff, a lot of this car's more economy car roots definitely show.
There are changes that Lexus makes to the TNGA-K platform, and a lot of it has to do with this type of stuff. You'll see extensive use of underbody coverings, more expensive underbody coverings.
Car. Yeah.
They put more effort into sealing out or keeping out the noise in the wheel well. The wheel well arch coverings are different. There's more foams. There's more sound deadening. That's a majority of where that tuning happens. Of course, they do things to damper spring rates, bushings, and vibration isolators to keep noise levels down, but the core architecture is the same that's shared across a lot of these cars. And you're right. It does definitely feel like the least premium platform despite all those things happening.
It's front-wheel drive, and unlike the Acura that is also front-wheel drive, that has a torque vectoring rear diff. Right. You can't get it in this car.
At least on the SH all-wheel drive version.
Yeah. And then all the German cars and the Koreans are rear-wheel drive platforms.
Yeah, so you start here with a 2.5 liter four-popper that's dual injection. It makes roughly 180 horsepower. You have 3 electric motors. One is MG1, that helps to start the car, charge the battery. Your second electric motor is for pure drive. And then the electric motor in the back is where you get that all-wheel drive effect. It's all-wheel drive, and they're all permanent magnet motors. So you get a lot of that weirdness and sharpness from the car that doesn't feel particularly natural, and you have an open diff in the back. So as power transfers to the back, it's like it always feels a bit disconnected compared to, like you said, the RDX, which is very natural, normal to drive, and all the rear-wheel drive architectures are all physically connected units. So what this does great is you're not buying it for performance, even if you get the F-Sport model with adaptive dampers and all that. You're buying it for the near 35-mile range. You can charge this on a traditional 240-volt charger in about 4 hours. If you get the faster charger, expedited charger, it's like 2.5. So that 35 miles range, you can really do most of your daily commuting without using the gasoline.
Yeah, if you're going to putt around in town, you want to get groceries, you want to drive shorter distances, I almost think of this like a Chevy Volt. You never need to use the internal combustion engine. That said, though, the other advantage it gets is good fuel economy overall, getting over 30 miles a gallon.
Yeah, at worst, you're going to get about 36 miles per gallon. Honestly, if you're just out of electric charging, you're that hybrid-only mode, you're going to get 36 miles a gallon. Once you start using the hybrid system and the plug-in part, it's going to go sky high from that, assuming you're within that range. And you just have a 20-mile commute. You can go with a full battery run on EV only to work and back, and then charge it at home if you forget. So that's a nice option to have with the plug-in setups, and you don't have the range anxiety with this either, which is partly why this is a special vehicle.
All right, Mark, let's go take it for a drive.
All right.
No thanks, dude.
What, you don't know thanks to a hybrid in sport mode? Are you ready for this?
I am. Show me.
We're in pure EV, or I don't know what we're
Are you okay not driving in charge mode,
There
Mark?
we go.
Oh. I feel like Maverick taking off in the aircraft carrier, Mark. That's some real performance.
They say this is, well, at least on the Toyota variant, this is their fastest car.
Well, no.
60, well, the fastest Toyota car at 0 to 60 in like 6 seconds.
Well, all the luxury, Mark, adds some weight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, the RAV4 is the Superleggera model of this.
Gotcha.
This has added some luxury back, some much needed refinement.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it's quick. Let's just put it that way. If you're in hybrid mode and you have a battery or EV charge, it is more than enough. It feels like the old V6 in terms of torque and power, which they haven't had a V6 in this thing ever. But like I'm talking about the Lexus V6. It's perfect. It's more than enough, and you're not buying this for power. Clearly, you're buying the plug-in hybrid because you care about one thing: efficiency.
Yep.
And range, right?
And Toyota does hybrids better than pretty much anyone else on the planet. They are, they may not make the most power, they may not even get the best fuel economy, but what they do well is you don't think about the hybrid drivetrain. You drive this around with even no charge, you never notice that it's a hybrid. The handoff is nearly perfect. It's very, very smooth. The eCVT, while it does still feel like a CVT, is pretty much seamless. You don't think about the drivetrain at all in this vehicle. All you see is that you're returning this, in our asshole driving's case, 34.8 miles per gallon, which is very good.
It is. It's really good. And in that regard, this is a total home run.
The thing that isn't so great about this car is you're about to demonstrate is none of the inputs are in any way organic. The steering's too fast. The throttle pedal doesn't really communicate all that well, and the
don't worry about that noise.
Some road debris.
So in full disclosure, Jack hit a chair on the highway and destroyed the wheel liner, got knocked off. So we got to fix that real quick. Hold on a second. All right, let's try this again. So now that we pushed the plastic off the wheel, let's talk about the way that this car feels and handles and the quietness of it. Because the hybrid system really does help quiet this down a lot. You barely hear the four-popper unless you get into it. Like, you're not going to get into it. There's enough torque from the electric motors to stay away from getting the engine wound up. So because it drives and sounds more like an EV, it does add a level of refinement here over the regular four-cylinder.
And if you're doing like 80 miles an hour, you have no sensation of speed whatsoever. I will say one thing. It is odd, and I didn't really talk about this in the interior commentary, how high you sit up in this vehicle.
Yeah.
I feel like the belt line is very, very high on this vehicle, so the way they got around it is just raise you further up in the seat. So there's this like weird sensation that you're always on top of the car versus necessarily in it.
It is, and it's the visibility in this car is reduced. I feel like there's a lot less glass, and while it aids to the appearance of it, I honestly, that was the first thing I noticed. You get in and out of a lot of cars, the seats do not go down far in this car. Listen, I'm like maxed out down, and I already feel really high up.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about is we've more or less covered most things in this car is the ride quality. How do you think this compares to its luxury competitors?
I think most pavement types, it does a good job. I've never had a problem with the ride refinement and all of that. You know, TNGAK, this platform on all their cars does a great job. And this is the same thing. And again, you have to turn your brain off to any type of performance or handling other than, you know, straight line acceleration. But I think this is going to be fine for most people, honestly. There's never a time where you're like, oh man, this thing rides rough or it's too bumpy. It's got about the perfect balance for a street car.
Yeah, again, we talked about it in the shop. I think the only time you really notice that the car has economy car roots, which it does, is when you start driving it anything other than straight or like an old person or a more relaxed individual, shall we say.
It's the all-wheel drive calibration. Like, it just always feels delayed and overreactive in the back. It just doesn't feel natural. The inputs don't feel natural. It always feels like there's a disconnect between the front and the rear. And this is one of the problems with all-wheel drive, you know, especially at a more affordable level. The first time I felt this was in the Volvo, like, recharge products, the old ones, where it was like, what is happening? It just, and there's a little bit of that left over here. And what it has to do to fix everything is when you drive it hard, unfortunately, when it sends too much power to the back or you get some wheel slip, it's hyper active with the brakes. You always feel the ABS pulsing, trying to control each corner of the car as the stability control kicks in. So again, you're buying this, like you said, to do exactly what we're doing. Pile on the miles, quiet ride, and that's in good straight line acceleration.
And low running costs. The advantage of Lexus products traditionally. And again, this is new, but if you look at their track record, they're fairly reliable, they have good residuals, and they don't cost a whole lot to keep on the road for long periods of time. So with that, Mark, let's head into the final thoughts.
All right, Jack. Final thoughts on the NX450h Plus. Let's cover the pros and the cons. As you saw in the interior, the underbody, and the drive, this is going to be geared towards somebody specifically that wants a plug-in hybrid that you can drive 30 miles a day on EV only. It gives you the added flexibility of driving it as a hybrid and not having range anxiety. It allows you to force charge the battery so you don't have to plug it in all the time and kind of set aside your EV miles only when you need it. When you lose that, you're still getting 35 miles per gallon or thereabouts, and you have a 2.5 liter with dual injection, so port and direct injection, in an overall drivetrain that doesn't break. That's why you're buying this. The negative part is, of course, you're taking an architecture, and we talk about this a lot with cars, they have to scale this out to be everything. So it's got to be a Lexus, it's got to be a Toyota, like a RAV4, a Camry, and now an NX. So compared to its competitors like RDX, which feels far more natural and engaging to drive with all-wheel drive, the German competitors, even Genesis, rear-wheel drive architectures are better to drive than this. You can't change it. And with all-wheel drive and the way they've calibrated this, it's not a great engaging car. So you're choosing the plug-in hybrid purely for the fact that you're going to be chewing up miles. So that's where it's great. The interior is a vast improvement in some ways, like technology. Toyota Connect infotainment is way better than what they used to have. It feels more modern, but at the same time, you're going to question like exterior styling it's better than it used to be. Interior still feels more claustrophobic than like a RAV4. So you got to weigh this out, and you have to look at it directly compared to, like, I would say cross-shop this against the RDX or the Genesis and pick out which one you think is going to suit you best. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.